Hi, Kristen.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good.
Oh, nice to see you. I'll put my video on in 1 minute.
Hmm?
I'll put my video on in 1 minute.
No rush. I normally say hi to test audio.
Okay.
Patricia? Awesome.
Hello.
Awesome. Hi, good to see you.
Hi, Counselor. Great to be here.
Great, great. So just making sure all of our technical issues. Oh, Counselor Flynn's just joined us.
Hi, Councilor Edwards.
Hello. Oh, good. It's starting to get lonely. Let me see. I think I also have a list of attendees from the city as well. Let me just make sure.
Yeah, go on 93.
See now. Neil, you sent over the list, right, of attendees? Or Christine, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I sent it a little while ago, but Kristen and Osgood.
I got it.
Yeah, it looks like
Yeah.
everyone's here.
Is it Chief? Or Chris?
Apologies, Counselor.
Hi.
So,
I just want to make sure I announced your titles correctly. Is it Chief? I forget all the time.
it is formally, yeah, Chief of Streets, but
And then
we've also got obviously Commissioner McCosh.
Yep. Is it Commissioner Kristen McGosh?
Yes.
Commissioner of the Disability Commission, but I just want to make sure. Okay. And then I have also Para Jaya Singh, engineer for PWD. Jaya's here.
Yep.
Okay.
One note about Para, he's the city engineer, and
yep. This is me not acknowledging that I need larger print on my cell phone. I'm just not ready to say that yet. Todd Lyman.
Yes.
Have I said it correctly?
Yes, Counselor.
Okay, and then I have Chong Liu. As well. I see Councilor Flaherty's joined us. Is Chong not available? The attorney for PWD.
Chong should be here. I thought he was going to join.
Let me check.
I don't see him.
Could be waiting. There's a number 617-888-9461. Could that possibly be Chong?
Could be. Todd, do you have his number?
Yeah, that sounds like Chung. Let me check.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hey, Chong.
There he is.
It's Chong? Okay.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem. So just want to make sure I had went through everyone's name, made sure I can get their titles correct, and also just confirm that they're here. Again, I just have Councilor Flaherty and Councilor Flynn with me right now. I'm going to tell my colleagues in 2 minutes we're going to start. And okay.
Perfect.
Sounds good.
Hi, Pada.
So good to see you, Counselor. I hope you are staying safe. This little virus is a very cheeky little virus, and uh, it's mutating and it is being very cheeky. So please be careful.
I am trying my best, but I have to say I'm so impressed with the bridge you're building, North Washington.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
I go to Charlestown oftentimes over that bridge, and just to watch the new one get built at lightning speed because of the makeshift temporary
Yes.
one, it was the best thing we could have done for the community.
Yes. Counselor, hopefully I will remember, we have a scaled version, like a small, when I say small, it's kind of about 10 feet long, uh, miniature version of the new bridge. I'll try and take a picture and send it to you. So this way you will know what the final baby will look like.
I will, yeah, keep hope alive. Like, this is to remind people what we're getting to.
Yes.
We've been joined by Liz, Counselor Braden and Counselor Sabi George. Let them in, and then we'll just go ahead and get started. I also, along with Chong, who's on the phone, I have a Sarah L. and a Diana Captioner as in the waiting room. Is Sarah by any chance with the administration?
Yep. Yeah, Sarah's in the Disabilities Commission.
Oh, my apologies. Is she also speaking? And I don't have her full name. I just have Sarah L.
Yeah, she's not speaking, but she's very much present.
Fair enough. And then
In our office.
also Diana. So we'll let Sarah in. And then in terms of Diana Captioner, is anyone,
Yep.
is she, yes, also with the administration?
No, captions usually has an extra line to listen in so they can make sure they can type the session. So we'll just let her stay in the waiting room and she'll be able to hear from there.
I was hoping that there'd at least be more counselors than administration on this, but it looks like that's not going to happen right away. But just so we don't delay this any further, let's go ahead and get started. Pulling up my opening remarks. Okay. All right, so we're formally going to start the hearing. Good afternoon. I am City Councilor Lydia Edwards, Chair of the Committee on Government Operations. It's Friday, September 25th, 2020. And we're here today for a virtual hearing on docket 0909, an ordinance amending the City of Boston Code Ordinances, Chapter 8-7, Public Improvement Commission. Mayor Walsh sponsored this proposal, and it is referred to the committee on August 19th. In accordance with the March 12th, 2020 executive order, modifying certain requirements of the open. Sorry, can you hear me? In accordance with the executive order, we are having this hearing on via Zoom in order to allow for the city council to do its job, but also to balance public safety. The public may watch this meeting via live stream at www.boston.gov/city-council-TV. It will be rebroadcasted at a later date on Comcast 8/RCN82/Verizon 1964. For public testimony, written comments may be sent to the committee email at ccc.go@boston.gov. I'm going to quickly summarize what the proposal would do. This proposal amends Chapter 8, Section 8-7.1 of the City of Boston Code regarding the membership of the Public Improvement Commission. The proposal would expand the membership of the PIC, is what I'm going to say, and I think many of the people will say today, the PIC, to include the Commissioner of Disabilities Commission. The proposal would also add the Executive Director of the Boston Water and Sewer Commission to the PIC, or the PIC. According to Mayor Walsh's transmittal letter, expanding the membership of the PIC will provide for the effective management of public rights of ways, enhance public travel, and safeguard public safety. The PIC owns and has jurisdiction authority over the city's private and public ways. The Disabilities Commission works closely with Boston Transportation Department, the Boston Public Works Department, and other entities to ensure that streets and sidewalks are open and accessible to all residents. The proposal would add a seat for the Disabilities Commissioner as a voting member of the PIC or the PIC to further enhance safety and accessibility to the city's streets and sidewalks. With us today, we have, now I'm going to go through the folks in the administration. We have Chris Osgood, Chief of Streets, Kristen McCosh, Commissioner of the Disabilities Commission. We also have, and I'm pulling this up, always Neil Doherty from Intergovernment Relations, representing the mayor's office today. And sorry, guys, I get behind. I want to make sure I get everyone's titles. Excuse me. Oh. We also have Para Jayasingh, engineer for PWD, for the Public Works Department. We have Todd Liming, interim chief engineer for the PIC. We also have Chong Liu, who's an attorney for the Public Works Department. I believe we've also been joined by Sarah from the Disabilities Commission, and I also know that Patricia Mendez is here as well. Joining us also, and did I get everyone from the administration? Thumbs up. Thank you. Joining us also are my colleagues, Councillor Ed Flynn, District 2, Councillor Michael Flaherty at large, Councillor Liz Braden, District 9, and Councillor Sabi George at large. Have I included all of the city councillors who are currently available? Very well. So what I'm going to do now is just quickly to my colleagues, I think for a matter of housekeeping, because this is the administration's move to change the ordinances, and we would have to concur with that. I think I'd like to let them go ahead and lead to tell us exactly what they're trying to do and let us know exactly the laws and the impact of that law. Normally I would have us do opening statements, but I think it makes sense for the administration to make their case, and then we go through the line with opening statements and questions. Okay? My colleagues okay with that, unless any of them have any burning opening statements they need to make right now? You do, Councillor Flynn. Very well.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Edwards. I apologize for speaking first. I'm going into a public safety meeting in one of my housing developments, so I apologize. I just want to say I agree with this proposal 100%. I know the tremendous job Krista McCosh and her team play in so many issues, and that's one of the first things at development meetings. When I'm talking to a development team or talking to Chris Osgood, I always ask, have you talked to Commissioner McCosh, because she has excellent skills, and I'm so proud of the work that she's done. Water and sewer also plays a critical role in our city as well. So I just want to say thank you for this excellent proposal. Our persons with disabilities play a critical role in our city, and this is just another way that we will continue to treat them with respect and dignity, and making sure everything is accessible to them as well. Thank you, Councilor Edwards, and again, I apologize for speaking out of turn.
No problem. I see that Councillor Flaherty also would like to make a brief statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Same as Councilor Flynn. We had a shooting last night down at the Old Colony Development, coupled with my former colleague in the District Attorney's Office, Paul McLaughlin. There's a 25th memorial mass for him. So kind of multitasking here, but I just want to go on record of supporting this ordinance. This ordinance, as you know, proposes to expand the membership of the Public Improvement Commission. The Disabilities Commission already works closely, as well as Boston Water and Sewer. They work very closely with Boston Transportation Department, the Public Works Department, and various other entities to ensure that the streets and sidewalks are accessible to residents and to visitors. And oftentimes our offices get pulled into things. I can speak, Council Flynn and I recently, an issue on Emerson Street, and also an issue down on Old Colony Avenue with respect to just flagrant violation and or just not adhering to the Public Improvement Commission's mandates or orders. So that said, given how rapidly our city's growing and there's so many planning initiatives occurring around the city, I read with interest the one obviously in your district this morning, and so many others. I feel that the District Disabilities Commission and Water and Sewer deserve to have a seat at the table, and obviously to have that relationship codified. And I'd like to publicly thank the great work that Commissioner McCosh does, someone I know very well and grew up with in South Boston, and also Henry Vitale over at Water and Sewer, who I find to be one of the more attentive and super responsive public servants in the city. So all that said, I think it's a great initiative, and those two codified and voting seats will be very welcome, the Public Improvement Commission. And I think we'll go a long way in addressing some of the issues that flare up as we're going through so many development projects. It's almost as though we kind of take our eye off the ball. So they'll be making sure that we stay focused on that. So thank you, Madam Chair, and I look forward to hearing some of the testimony before I have to run off to this meeting.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate you both getting in some words in support before you have to go and support your community. I will, I guess, Councillor Sabi George or Councillor Braden. Councillor Sabi George says no. Councillor Braden?
No opening comment for me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Look forward to hearing the testimony.
Thank you very much. All right, so let's turn it over to the city. I believe the lead today will be Chief Osgood and Commissioner McCosh. You're on mute, Chris.
You would think by now that I would be able to figure that out. Thank you so much to Councilor Edwards, Councilor Braden, Councilor Sabi George, Councilor Flynn, Councilor Flaherty for convening this hearing. And really thank you to each of you for your sort of consistent and committed focus on safety and accessibility on our streets. It truly does come up in every single conversation with each one of you, and appreciate your steadfast focus on that. The Public Improvement Commission, or the PIC, is, as Councilor Edwards correctly says, the way in which we sort of affectionately refer to it. It's a commission within the Public Works Department. It is staffed by Todd Lamming, who's the Executive Secretary, with the support of Chong Liu from the Law Department, and rolling up to our City Engineer, Parajai Singh. And while it exists within the Public Works Department, essentially what it is a cross-departmental commission bringing together the relevant agencies who have a regulatory role in the streets and sidewalks of the City of Boston. And right now there are 5 voting members. The 5 voting members include the Public Works Department, the Transportation Department, the Inspectional Services Department, the Property Management Department, and the Boston Water and Sewer Commission. Staff representatives from each of those departments hold public hearings on a biweekly schedule to review proposals that look through an engineering lens at adjusting the city's streets and sidewalks. And as they do, the sort of the topics that come up include things like the location and the dimension of streets, of their designs, of their names, the location of things like canopies and sidewalk cafes, as well as use of space below the streets or above the streets for utilities. And as was mentioned by Councilor Edwards in the opening comments, there are 5 departments that formally sit on the PIC, but there is a 6th department, which is part of every single one of our meetings and part of every single one of our conversations. And that 6th department is the Disabilities Commission. Commissioner McCosh, Patricia Mendez, Sarah Leung are with us as part of our hearings and are reviewing all of our proposals. But right now, unlike the other 5 departments who are the regular participants, they do not have a vote, and this ordinance corrects that. It adds the Disabilities Commission as a 6th voting member to the PIC, which in essence, it gives equal and appropriate weight to accessibility of our streets and sidewalks for persons with disabilities, and the regulatory knowledge and design knowledge that Commissioner McCosh and her team have. So I really appreciate the councilor's consideration, or the council's consideration of this ordinance. Really encourage your support of it. Look forward to questions on it, and happily turn it over to Commissioner McCosh, who can speak more about the role of the Disabilities Commission and how that would be strengthened through a voting membership of the PIC.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Council Chairwoman Edwards, for this opportunity to speak about our work with the Public Improvement Commission, and also to discuss the possibility of being appointed as an official voting member of the PIC. As the Chief said, my department has been attending PIC hearings on a regular basis for 10 years, beginning when I was appointed as the City's Disability Commissioner in 2010. In fact, my appointment followed on the heels of a group of advocates filing 500 complaints with the State Architectural Access Board against the city's lack of access to sidewalks and curb cuts. Their great advocacy work and complaints resulted in the accessible path of travel that was created on Boston City Hall Plaza. So following my appointment, I felt it was critical that the voices of persons with disabilities be a part of the conversations of streets and sidewalks. I immediately met Para Jay Singh, and he invited me to attend the PIC meetings on a regular basis. I eventually was able to hire architectural access staff, and they replaced me as the subject matter experts in the PIC hearings. So many people don't know this, but my role with the city is actually twofold. Along with being the city's disability commissioner, I'm also the ADA Title II coordinator, which is a federal mandate under the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act. Any municipality that has over 50 employees is required to hire an ADA coordinator as a regulatory role to process complaints of discrimination against persons with disabilities. I regularly get complaints from residents about lack of access on sidewalks. And the importance of this role is that it's on a local level. People don't have to file a federal complaint with the ADA, which can take decades to resolve. But on the local level, I'm able to work with my city departments to ensure that the building codes that we install aren't just the ceiling, but they're the floor, the bare minimum requirements that we would approve. So as a local ADA Title II coordinator, I'm able to resolve complaints on a local level with city departments and also with the State Architectural Access Board. And this is a critical regulatory role that allows the city to remain in compliance and avoid costly lawsuits. So appointing us as a voting member would take this one step further, and it would also follow along the city's lines of some initiatives they've recently instituted, including the Article 80 accessibility checklist that the BPDA approved about 5 years ago. That requires building developments to complete a checklist of accessibility before they are approved for building. So having this codified would be a huge boon to the city, and it would really benefit residents who have disabilities, who are residents and also tourists, visitors, students, everyone who accesses Boston streets on a regular basis.
Is anyone else from the city going to speak?
Parata, Chung, Sarah, Patricia. We can all certainly answer questions, but I think that's it for testimony from us, Councilor.
Very well. So I will go through, if Councilor Flynn, the order for questions would be Councilor Flynn, Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Braden, Councilor Sabi George, and then myself. So Flynn and Flaherty probably told us that, oh, Councilor Flynn or Flaherty, if you're available, they might have gone to the meeting by now.
Yeah, one, just, Madam Chair, just had one question. Just wanted to, for those on today, can you explain, so who are the other voting members of the board? And also just briefly, and this is really for those who may be tuning in, who really don't understand how the PIC works. So maybe the chief can just give sort of just a brief synopsis as to what's the process by which a proponent is required to go to the PIC. And I say that only because because of the parking crunch in particularly the densely populated neighborhoods and all that new construction, everybody trying to put cars on that first level or coming to the city for curb cuts because they have some front yard space or access maybe to an adjoining easement for a driveway next to their home. And so I just want some edification for those, and particularly also for my newer colleagues that may be on as well, that what's the process by which you're required to go to PIC? How does that process work? And if you could just do that briefly for everyone's edification, I think that would be very helpful.
Sure. I'll start, Councilor, and then Para, Todd, Chung, in particular, feel free to add. So first on the question of who the voting members are. So today, the designated voting members are the Commissioner of the Public Works Department, the Commissioner of the Transportation Department, the Commissioner of ISD, the Commissioner of Property Management, and the Executive Director of the Boston Water and Sewer Commission, or their designees. And I would just sort of underscore the or their designees because in most cases, it is essentially an engineer on their teams who is the actual voting member, the actual representative who attends the PIC meetings. To your second question, sort of what is on and what is overseen by the PIC and what is not, I think the parking example is a very perfect one. So things like regulatory changes to the curb. Are there parking meters here? Is it visitor parking? Is it residential parking? Things like that. Those are determinations solely by the transportation department. The PIC focuses on sort of physical changes to the street, which, exactly to Councilor's point, would include things like if a new development is coming in, where the driveway might be for that new development, but not how many parking spaces might be inside that building. It would consider what does that new curb line physically look like? How wide is the sidewalk? How are the tree pits spaced? Things like that. But it wouldn't consider necessarily the rules of the sidewalk itself. So anybody who's basically making a permanent change to the public right-of-way comes through the PIC process, and essentially this is that internal review process led through the Public Works Department, but convening all of these different groups to review and ensure that from a regulatory perspective, the projects are following the appropriate coding perspective. Team, anything you guys want to add or amend from that? Go ahead, Par.
No, Chief. Again, as the Chief said, any physical changes to the roadway comes under the purview of the Public Improvement Commission, not the use of that space, but the physical structure of that space. And that is just not the surface councillors, it is what happens on the airspace and what is under. So basically from the center of the earth to that whole volume, which is being managed by the Public Improvement Commission. And the key word is, it is the public space. And that is why this commission was structured to safeguard its use.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Para, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Kristen?
Yep, I just wanted to add that the issues that would affect accessibility, the main issues that my team looks at are surface materials of sidewalks. A lot of developments want to put in all brick or pavers. So we advocate for a 5-foot wide path of concrete, path of travel, and to have bricks on the edges of the sidewalks, and then also width and slope. We know that the engineers look at these things, but my team is able to take a deep dive to ensure that they provide ideal access for people with not only physical disabilities, but people who are blind, people who have other types of gait issues and balance issues. And it's really critical to get that look at the plans before they're approved.
Just wanted to let you all know we've also been joined by Councillor Bach. I'm going to go on to Councillor Braden. I'm assuming Councillor Flynn might be in the middle of the meeting. So Councillor Braden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor Flaherty's question actually preempted one of my questions. So understanding who's on there and the role as a physical therapist by profession, I really welcome this initiative to add someone from the Disabilities Commission onto this pick. I recently had the opportunity to go out to Washington Street over where B'nai B'rith, the Covenant House is, and observe traffic situations that are incredibly hazardous to elders and folks with disabilities. So I really welcome the additional insights that Commissioner McCosh will bring to this conversation. Although she's already participating, it's nice to give her a vote on these issues. And just a question for Commissioner McCosh, what is the biggest issue that you see that you have to deal with right now in terms of the public right-of-way and disability accessibility from the disability community?
We've been working with the PIC for so long that we've tackled a lot of the major issues. We have a policy for sidewalk materials. We have a policy for sidewalk cafes. But now we know since COVID hit and even before COVID, cities are looking at different uses of the streets. So now we have restaurants in the streets. We instituted a ramp program so that people would have access from the sidewalks to the streets. We have a lot of bike lanes that are becoming permanent. And you mentioned intersections. My team has a lot of expertise. They work with the Mass Commission for the Blind to navigate the intersections where bike lanes cross at a major crossing. I know there are issues like on Melnia Cass on really busy streets. And we look at all the master plans to ensure safe crossings for people who are blind, people with children, people with strollers. So really, I would say our biggest work right now is with the changing use of the streets. And it's just so critical that my staff has the really specific knowledge of people with disabilities that are blind, people with mobility challenges, because engineers know the physical requirements, but they don't always know the needs. So
Yeah.
we merge that knowledge and weigh in on it.
That's good to know. The one issue, changing use of the streets. We have so many more people using bicycles, and they need to park their bicycles when they go into the business districts, and sometimes they are not parked in a very, very safe. So one issue I would like to raise up is, the need for some parking locations for bicycles that are not, it's not a blue bike, it's folks who own their own bicycle, but a place to safely secure their bicycle and have it safely parked so that someone with a disability or someone with a visual impairment isn't impacted by that bicycle.
Issue has actually come up at our Disability Commission Advisory Board, and my staff is working on a bike outreach plan right now to partner with bike communities, colleges, to ensure that bicyclists know the rules of the road and are aware of people with different disabilities, because that could affect someone who's deaf if they can't hear somebody coming on a bicycle. It has two real issues: the bicycles in motion and the bicycles when they're parked. If they're parked, this blocks access, that's an issue, but also behavior of bicyclists. We want to make sure that they know that there are vulnerable people using the sidewalks, and they need to be aware of that.
The other issue that comes up a lot out in this district, I'm sure it comes up in every district, is the inadequate shoveling of crosswalks in wintertime when crosswalks are the either side of the crosswalk at the curb side is got a pile of snow. And I observed a gentleman last winter he had a walker. And he was trying to climb over. He got across the pedestrian crossing, but he couldn't get out onto the sidewalk because he had to climb over a pile of snow and ice. So that's another big issue that I want to flag up as well. But anyway, I really welcome. I'm a physical therapist by profession, so I really welcome your addition to, and as a fully fledged voting member, if this is what we decide to do. I think it'll be a great advantage to have your expertise. Councillor Edwards, that's all I have for now.
Thank you so much. Councillor Sabi George, and then followed by Councillor Bach.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to my colleagues for asking some really thoughtful and conversation-provoking or informative, I guess, questions. Because I continue to learn. Although I've been on the council 4.5 years, we don't always have an opportunity to sort of think about this work. So I appreciate this effort and certainly support this addition to the commission. I am curious, are we missing somebody else? If we're taking this opportunity to add to the commission, is there another body that's maybe missing that we should be looking at? Another interest, I should ask. I don't know if anyone is at liberty to answer that question, or Chief Osmond.
I think it's a great question. I think there's a reason why we were focused specifically on the Disabilities Commission for this one. With great credit to Todd, there's a lot of outreach that happens with every PIC submission. But for the actual PIC meetings and the actual sort of like deep participation, it really is right now these 5 departments plus the Disabilities Commission, and it's Sarah and Patricia who are with us in every single one of our meetings, and being able to allow the commissioner to have a vote and in addition to a voice as part of the process seemed like the right next step, given all the engagement which they have already put in, to the commissioner's point, over the last 10 years.
No, thank you, Chief, for that. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add, but I don't have additional questions. I appreciate everyone's thought on this. And that's it. Thanks. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bach.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll just say I was able to watch the hearing from City Council TV before I was able to join on Zoom, so I have been following. I think it's a great idea to have the Disability Commission have that official vote along with the voice. I think I just have one sort of technical rules question, which is you're going from a commission with a 5-member body to a 6, which of course creates the possibility of ties. And although I assume that the way that you guys proceed is that generally you're reaching consensus or supermajority, I just wonder, Chief Osgood, whether you all have thought at all about decision procedure in the case of a tie vote.
Chung will likely, from the law firm, can certainly add to this. I think there are two things. One, this changes quorum. So quorum goes from 3 members to 4, a small for the PIC. To your point, these are largely sort of engineering and regulatory decisions, and a lot of that is worked through over the course of consultation in advance. So I think the likelihood of deadlock on any on any issue would be unlikely. But Chung, I don't know if you want to, if there's other things you'd want to add.
Absolutely. Thanks for this opportunity, and I would like to mention the PIC is a public process, and the public has right to know. The hearings, we conduct the business in hearings, and it's a public, the state public meeting law also apply is 6 to members. So there's a no tie. There's a no tie, and it has to be a majority. So if it's 2-3, there's no decision. So we have to, the quorum has to be in majority. So that's a great good question. So the state public meeting law to mandate, we have to have a majority.
Chief, if I may add timing. Yes. Councillor Bock, I've had the privilege of serving or participating in the Public Improvement Commission for now 23 years. And so I can give you a little summary of how the votes have been over 23 years. There have been maybe a handful of instances where there was a what I call a non-unanimous vote. And in those 5 or 6 instances over a period of 23 years, it was just one vote that was opposing. And that may have been done for reasons which I don't know. But you ask a very technical, logical question as to how do we have a split vote, like a 3 versus 3. There's great care that is taken by the commission members, staff, to ensure that there is a common understanding as to what needs to be done. Once in a while, maybe once every 5-10 years, there's a super controversial issue that comes up. But so far we have managed to overcome all of those. So mathematically, yes, it could be an awkward situation, but the great leadership that is given forth by the commission members, the PIC staff, myself included, we try and manage things so that the situation doesn't try to manage us.
Thank you, Para. It sounds more like we've had the privilege of having you serve on the PIC for 23 years. But I appreciate that context and also appreciate John's answer. It sounds like from a decision procedure perspective, a 3-3 vote would be a non-decision by the PIC. So yeah, that's good to know. In response to Councillor Asabi George's comment, I would be remiss as a historian not to say that I can think of another entity that could be in the mix for the conversation about the public realm in our city, and it would be a sort of landmarks historical preservation angle. But that's just a thought for another day. I did want to ask Commissioner Makosh, and again, this is just taking advantage of you all being here, but I think one of the things that's come up with outdoor dining, right, is the issue of curbs and the fact, and obviously, the city's done a lot to try to provide ramps to people and makes those that street dining accessible. But I know in the neighborhood of Beacon Hill that I represent, the place on Joy Street where we did a project a while back that gave a kind of shared street context where the sidewalk is flush with the street is very popular, and it's popular also in a context in which people walk on the street quite a lot. I wonder if, as we think about using our curb space more expansively in the future, whether the PIC and the city is thinking at all about where the opportunities are, not just in terms of sidewalk materiality, but to actually bring sidewalks to grade with streets in places where the sort of use and circumstances would make that appropriate.
Yes, I know that the Public Works Department does work on shared streets, and we've collaborated with them. I know there's one on Union Street now. That was the most recent one. And we always get input on that, and they always seek our input, but I don't know if the Public Works staff wants to talk more about that.
I would know well. Go ahead, Par.
Sorry, Chief, you first.
Go for it.
Councillor, shared street is something which we are always striving to, so that the conflicts between pedestrians and vehicles are balanced. That curb line, you know, why the reason why we have a curb is to actually channel water. You know, when it rains, you need that little lip so that water. Sometimes I think in all of United States, we have a 6 inches of curb edge. It doesn't rain that much. So somehow we can balance things so that the space is more conducive to our changing needs. And these are some of the details which the Public Improvement Commission actually have oversight, the height of that edge stone. Union Street is one of those streets which we struggled, and we didn't get all what we want. We still have a curb on one side, but on the other side, it is more for like a shared space. There are more streets in the downtown area where we want to balance the use. And these, interestingly or sadly, are not new concepts. These are widely available throughout the planet. You go to Europe, Asia, wherever you have it. So we don't want to be the last, but we are slowly, hopefully getting there.
Thank you so much. And Madam Chair, I believe those are all of my questions.
Thank you. I just had some quick follow-up questions. So this is to provide a vote for the Boston Water and Sewer and?
So great question. And definitely, Para, Todd, Chong, correct me, goes right. The Boston Water and Sewer component is a little bit of a cleanup issue. So the PIC was established, I think, in 1954. Chong can correct me if I'm wrong on that. At the time, Water and Sewer was essentially part of the Public Works Department. Water and Sewer was then split out and has retained a voting seat on the board. But the Water and Sewer component of this amendment is basically to clean up and clarify that. They've always had a voting sort of role in the board, or ever since they've been separated out. So the real, in addition to that sort of cleanup of the language, the real regulatory change here is adding that 6th vote of Disabilities Commission. Chong, did I capture that correctly?
Absolutely, absolutely. I totally agree. There's, you know, you can be attorney chief, you know, so I don't have any more comments. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's more of a cleanup and clarification than changing any structural. The structural change is Kristen McCosh, or the Disability Commissioner vote permanent, right? Okay. The other question, I mean, in terms of other seats and perspectives, was there thoughts about involving Vision Zero or some biking organizations as well? I mean, we have had 3, maybe 4 bike deaths. People who've died on public ways. So have we thought about including them?
Sure. So the sort of representation there, or the representation on the commission in general, is essentially department staff. It is a cross-departmental coordinating entity within Public Works. That perspective is sort of really ensured through both the representation of the Transportation Department and the representation of the Public Works Department, for whom, obviously, to your point, Vision Zero is a core priority of the work that we do.
Okay, and then just to clarify, when you say this commission kicks in when there's ever a change, not in the use, but in either the distance or the height or the area of public rights of way. So, just a couple scenarios I want to make sure I'm clear about. You have the Bennington Street in East Boston is a public street. I, as a developer, restaurant person, need a bump out or something like that. Even though I own the privacy of the front of my restaurant, which may, whatever, the fact that I'm putting any change in any flow on Bennington Street triggers you guys.
Correct.
Okay.
If there was to be right, exactly. Yep.
Okay. And so then the other one is, so we've talked about this, Chris, about over in East Boston on Eagle Square. I, as an owner, would like to give or to sell my property to the city, for the city to change rights of ways and things like that. That also triggers PIC, or was that just because we invited you there?
If the land is either becoming a street or was a street and is no longer a street. So if it was like part of what was considered to be public right of way, then the PIC would be the party that would do it. That would either sort of add that to the right of way or discontinue that as part of the right of way. Is that part of Chong, is that fair?
Correct, Chief. Councillor,
Yes.
if the property in question, it can end up in two places. One, just surplus city property or part of the city roadway. If it is going to be part of the city roadway or this thing which we call the right of way, if it is to be that, then the Public Improvement Commission gets involved. If it is just City of Boston owned property, then the city's either the DND or PFD, one of those, or it's just like surplus property. But most times, Councillor, I think the desire is to augment the city's right of way so that there's more, at which point the PIC gets involved.
Okay.
The same thing the chief said in more words.
Okay, and then finally, talk to me about PDAs, planning development areas, where, as I understand, the zoning is set for them, right? And the zoning and what's going to happen on them is set, you know, upon passage, like we just did with Suffolk Downs. So now we passed the zoning on that. Okay, fine. And that's like one scenario, it's totally private. And one scenario. Now, we got them to deed a lot of their property, public rights over to the city of Boston. So that's a good thing. But assume it didn't. Assume it's still private now. The zoning already's been set. Parking ratios have been set. They, you know, I know Parks and you guys went all the way through this, or excuse me, Parks went through, I'm sorry, Parks, BTD, several agencies analyzed the PDA. Fine. BPDA votes for this. Where was PIC and where was, like, how do we know Kristen's has a voice in that?
So that's a great question. So the PIC, and it gets a little bit to, I think, Councilor Bach's question as well. We're not sort of like this is a body that isn't sort of originating ideas. It is reviewing proposals that come in. So the point when Suffolk Downs, for example, the roadway network there would come before the PIC is when there's sort of a specific street layout that needs to get approved, a street design that needs to get approved, or a modification to that, or utility company looking to do something different above or below that public right of way. Mm-hmm. It's not sort of early in the planning process. It's more of a review once the actual physical, to like confirm or amend like the actual physical plan. Okay, so I guess I wanted to make sure, because I know I really also value the Disability Commissioner having a voice and having a vote on this and making sure that it's gone through that lens as well. So again, I guess because the public realm goes above the streets as well, you would have jurisdiction. Even if it was privately owned, you would probably argue this is still in Boston, right? Prada, the jurisdiction goes above that. So it doesn't really, yeah. It's not that private ownership negates you guys.
Councillor, the best way for me to answer, the best way, as the chief said, it is not appropriate for the Public Improvement Commission to get involved in the planning side of the equation. Right. Because we are supposed to be an independent body. Now, when private developers want to establish roadways within their new property, the Suffolk Downs is a great example. So these individuals, they don't design these roads blindly, meaning they understand what public works design standards are. Nevertheless, councillor, every once in a while, these very smart people, they propose plans for new public streets or changes to the public streets that are counter to common sense. And that is when we engage over the last 10 years or even longer, we engage the Commissioner McCause's team to correct those. So the Public Improvement Commission, another way I like to say who they are, even though we have a very formal title saying the regulator of the public, not the regulator, the guardian of that public space, it is like the last safety net. So irrespective of what what developers may take shortcuts in not giving consideration to the pedestrian paths of travel. When it comes to the Public Improvement Commission, since they are the ultimate landlord, they get to say what it needs to be. And that's a very decisive and powerful position. And until the Commissioner McCosh, the desire to have the commissioner be part of this commission is so that the area of responsibility which Commissioner McCosh has, it is now codified as a voting member, not just that it's a sensible thing to do. Commissioner McCosh, if you could add to what I'm trying to say, with all the drama which we have now, as a voting member, you can tell some of these people to go pound sand. I'm sorry for me saying things of that nature, but
No,
Commissioner, if you could rescue me from saying more silly things.
Thank you, Para. Councilor Edwards, I would say, first of all, that my staff, Patricia and Sarah, Patricia is a registered architect and Sarah has her degree in architecture. So they know, they're subject matter experts and they've learned so much about accessibility. Patricia serves on the State Architectural Access Board as a voting member. So we really have that expertise and they are involved very early on in all the developments. They attend the scoping sessions which BPDA puts out for everything from concept to ideas and things that aren't yet built. So they are involved in the process very early. In fact, we were just talking this week about Suffolk Downs and the street layout. So my staff does get input on those projects. And as far as being a voting member on the PIC, I really think, just like to emphasize what Para said, being a voting member just gives us that credibility and we know that most developers are on our team and they want to do the right thing, but we had issues like with the Seaport. I remember when I first came on, some of those streets are private and like Para said, sometimes very wealthy, very knowledgeable people can skirt around things that we don't want to be in Boston. So we want to make sure that we are on top of that as a voting member and we can actually just say no.
Okay. Well, those are all of my questions. I will turn it over to, back to anybody on the city council, my city council colleagues, those who are left. If you have any additional questions, if you can raise your blue hand. If not, unless you, Chris or Kristen, have any okay. Then I think at this point we've kind of covered the issue, and I think we all see the value in having a permanent seat with a perspective from the commission as necessary. So thank you so much for all attending today's hearing. With that, I'm going to close out the hearing. I don't have a gavel, so I always clap. Job well done. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.